Virtuous Woman, where I inspire women to think like the woman in Proverbs 31, spiritually, financially, and also relationally. So today I'm going to be talking about grief, and I'm going to be talking about loss. And I just wanted to give just a few pointers on how to just kind of prepare for loss, on being on this side of things, where you're the person who maybe, you know, has to take care of things, and even, you know, just having things prepared for, you know, whoever has to care for things when you're no longer here. So I know this is one of those things that a lot of people don't like to talk about, but you know, it's just the reality of life. You know, I heard a comedian the other day. He said something that was so profound to me, and he said that every time somebody dies, it should be a reminder that you are going to die one day yourself. Every time somebody dies, it should be a reminder for you that you one day are going to die yourself. So I just wanted to share a little bit about what's been going on with me. I on October 13th, I lost my father. It's still, today is, what is today? Oh, today is actually October 1st. It's still unbelievable to me right now. It's still, you know, I know that he's gone. You know, I saw him. I know that he's gone, but it's still unbelievable. So this is something that I'm still dealing with. If you have read my book, if you are following me on Facebook or anything like that, you know that I have been very open about the fact that my dad and I, we did not have a great relationship. My early years, they were wonderful with my daddy. Like, I was, you know, the little girl excited that he was coming over. You know, I just remember being in school, like knowing my daddy was coming over, and you know, he was just this big old tall man to me. You know, girls, I mean, even guys, you know how your father to you when you're little is just like bigger than life. He's Superman. He's just like, he can do anything. He can do no wrong, you know. So the early years were great. It was my teenage years that I did not have the best experience with him, and I won't necessarily I actually won't go into detail about that in this video, because like I said, it's in my book, and I think I've talked about it on other videos. I'm not sure if I've ever talked about it on this channel, but so our middle years weren't so great. But I was able to forgive him for the experience that I had with him during my teenage years, because one of the things that I was able to learn was that my father was abused himself. Like, he, you know, and whether anybody wants to call it abuse or not, he was, you know, verbally abused. He was, you know, just, and I'll just quickly share, that was one of the things that I experienced with him, was verbal abuse. My father was very verbally abusive toward me when I was a teenager, and it led to me having self-esteem issues. It just led to a bunch of different things that ultimately led to other things. And so for a long time, I blamed him for a lot of what I went through as a teenager and even as a young woman. So one of the things that helped me forgive him was knowing that he experienced the same thing. And also remembering that my father was only the way he was when he was drinking. You know, he wasn't, when he was sober, he was not the person that I saw when he was drinking. So that was one of the things that helped me forgive him. And I don't even want to get into details like that in this video, because this is not what this video is about. I just kind of wanted to give just a little bit of context to me and my father's relationship. And I will say that I prayed that our latter days be better than our former days. And I thank God for answering that, because me and my father, our relationship had gotten so much better. Like, we were good. Like, we were actually about to go on a trip. The weekend that he died, we were scheduled to go on a trip. And that's a whole other thing. But anyway, when my father died, I had already had a lot of things going on that I was dealing with. And it was just like, okay, my father died. I had all this stuff already that I was dealing with. And then on August 23rd, my oldest brother was found dead. And so, and that was 2 days before my father's funeral. My father's funeral was on August 25th. So 2 days before my father's funeral, got a call. I found out, you know, they said that we may have found your brother dead. We have to identify him. So because I was still running around handling things, because I had to plan my father's funeral. And so because I was running around trying to take care of things for my father, when I got the call about my brother, I couldn't even receive it. It was like I got the call, but it was like I was like, okay, I'm not going to think about this right now. I'm still running around. Like I was literally still taking care of things. If you've ever planned a funeral before, then you maybe have an idea, but I was still literally running around. So I literally could not receive that call. I said, okay, hung up the phone. I'm not going to think about this right now. I need to focus on getting things settled for my father. That may not even be my brother. Got the call the next day that it was him. Again, I pushed it to the back of my mind. It wasn't until the next day at my father's funeral. It was at the repast. It was after the funeral that I actually was like, wow, now I got to figure out what we're going to do about my brother. That's when the reality hit me. You know, for funeral, a lot of times it's closure for people. You know, people are able to, you know, move on and things like that. But for me, my father's funeral wasn't closure. It was just the beginning of my new reality that, you know, that I'm still dealing with now. I still have moments where I go to pick up the phone because I'm like, oh, I got to call my father. I still have moments where I just can't believe that my father is like really gone. Like my daddy is actually gone. And so, like I said, I'm still dealing with it. And then with my brother, thankfully, my sister stepped in and they were like, okay, we're going to handle things for him. And this part is why I wanted to make this video, because my brother didn't have life insurance. And I actually thought about getting life insurance on him a few years ago. And I don't know, it's kind of like I thought about it, but then it just kind of, as quick as it entered my mind, it left my mind. And now I wish that I would have done so, because we were not able to bury my brother. We ended up having to cremate him. My siblings and I, we just kind of had to pool our money and do the best that we could for him. So we couldn't give him a funeral or, you know, a burial and things like that. And so that really bothered me. And so that in itself has been a part of my grief for my brother. And so just the experience that I had with planning my father's funeral and then dealing with what we had to go through with my brother and having to cremate him, it just really made me want to help people to understand the importance of having things in order for when that time comes for you. One of the things that I have been thinking about more than anything was, if something happens to me, I don't want so much on my daughter's shoulder. I have one child, my daughter. She's a teenager now. She'll be 16 soon. And I just thought about, I got sad thinking about her having to go through everything that I was going through. Thankfully, my father, he did have a life insurance policy that we were able to use to, you know, cover his funeral. But even finding that, I had to search for it. We were almost prepared to have to pay out of pocket for my father's funeral. It was just crazy. It was so hectic, the planning process for my father's funeral. And I don't want my daughter to go through that. And we should not want our loved ones to have to go through anything really. Like, we should try to make it as easy as possible. For those of you who have children and loved ones, you know, let's start thinking about what will their responsibility be if something happens to me, right? You know, I saw, you know, somebody was talking about another video I watched, and they were talking about how, you know, a lot of the GoFundMe pages, campaigns that go up when someone dies. And, you know, and this is not to judge anybody that does not have life insurance, because I get it. I know how, you know, a lot of times we think we have more time. Even with my brother, like I said, the thought entered my mind and then it left because I thought I had more time. So this is not to judge anybody, but this is just to bring awareness to the fact that, you know, we can avoid having to put our loved ones through that, to have to put up a GoFundMe campaign, to have to, you know, have loved ones pool their money to try to get a proper funeral, a proper burial for you. So I wanted to give you all some tips on things that you can start doing now to make things easier for your loved ones for when, I'm not even going to say if, when we are all going to die one day. So this is just some tips of things that you can do to make things easier for them. And this isn't my first time having to go through this. My aunt who raised me when my mother died, I planned her funeral as well, but with her, everything was already, like, she had already told me, like, she hadn't paid for anything or planned anything. However, I was her beneficiary on the insurance policy. She had already told me where she wanted to be buried, where she wanted her funeral to be. I had access to everything that I needed access to. So with her, it was much more smoother than it was for me planning my father's funeral, because I had no idea where anything was. We hadn't talked about it. And so I guess that's probably one of the first tips that I would give, is to talk to your loved ones who will be responsible for if something happened. For an example, if you are older, if you're old enough to have grown children right now, maybe you want to kind of talk to them and let them know what are some things that you will want to happen. Like, do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? Let them know where you will want your services to be. Let them know where you want to be buried, if you want to be buried. Kind of, if you can't get it in writing, at least try to verbally let them know. So that way, like I said, my aunt told me, she didn't put anything in writing, but I remember everything she told me. So when that day came, even though it came a lot sooner than what I thought it was going to come, I was prepared. I knew what she wanted me to do. And so that helped a lot. So just start talking to those people. Or maybe you don't have children. Maybe you do have children, but they're still children, right? And they're still young. And so maybe your siblings, maybe your spouse, whoever, your friends, whoever will be that person, or be those persons that's going to take care of everything. Let them know in advance. That's one thing that'll help things run smoothly for them. Also, get some life insurance. Get life insurance. That right there is something that we all need. Again, like I said before, and I'll probably say it again before this video is over, we are all going to die. Life insurance is one of those insurances that we absolutely need. We can argue about car insurance. People, they argue about car insurance because you pay all this money and then you never get in an accident. It's like, okay, I have this insurance for what? But life insurance is one of those things that you will absolutely use one day. And they even have life insurances now where you can actually, that's a whole other video, but you can actually use them while you're living. But anyway, get life insurance. Even if you get a small policy that's $25,000, that will at least cover your funeral and your burial. Depending on where you are. I know things vary, but the basic $25,000 should cover a basic funeral and burial. So just, again, think about your loved ones. Think about the fact that you don't want them to have to do a bunch of running around for you and, trying to get money together and penny pinching and borrowing here and there to have to, have your funeral and bury you. So get life insurance. You can get it as cheap. So I have a couple different life insurance policies. One of them I pay $17 a month. And I got that life insurance through my bank. So through my credit union. If you are with a credit union or bank, even I personally don't like policies through my job. Now, if you have a policy through your job, that's fine. But just find out what will happen if you change jobs. Is this a policy that your job is paying for you, or is this a policy that you can take with you if you happen to change jobs? Okay, so find that out. I have my policy, one of my policies through my bank, and then I just have one on its own. The policy through my bank is only $17. It was a discount for being a member that they offered to members. So ask your bank, if you're with a credit union, find out what kind of policies they have, okay? And then also, number 3. The number 3 thing you want to do is appoint a beneficiary. So when you get a life insurance policy, you have to appoint a beneficiary. The beneficiary is going to be the person that is that your money will go through when you pass away, and that's going to be the person that you trust to handle your funeral expenses, right? So your beneficiary, it can be your child, but just keep in mind that your child is under 18. You're going to have an adult on there as well, because one thing that I found out is that if a minor is the beneficiary, a minor only, the funeral home that I was going through, they said that they would not have used the policy. I would have had to go to court and prove that it was some legal steps that I would have had to take to prove that I can make financial decisions on her behalf. So to avoid that, if your beneficiary is a minor, just have an adult also that you can trust. Maybe the adult that you appoint to take care of that child if something happens to you. So you want to have a beneficiary or beneficiaries. Maybe you have 50% going to one person, 50 to another, or maybe 25% here, whatever, however you want to do it, but have your beneficiaries appointed. Number 4, consider getting a will or a trust. Now, whether a will is best for you or a trust, it just kind of depends, So I would, if you're trying to figure out which one is best for you, well, a will is something that anybody can do, right? Trust, I believe, is something that's more so for people who have, property and assets and things like that. Even a will, will can, take care of things if you have property and assets. But I believe a trust, I'm not a financial expert. I don't want to quote, I'm still learning about these things myself, so I don't want to steer you wrong. So maybe talk to your financial planner to find out which one will be best, a will, a trust, or maybe even both. But you definitely want to have something in writing if something should happen. So even if you talk to your loved ones, like I mentioned earlier, you want to have something in writing, something legal, because what you and that person talked about, it will not stand in court. If somebody else tries to come and say something and do something, that whatever conversation you had will not stand. So you need a legal will or trust. And again, find out which one is best for you, especially if you have property, assets, stocks, bonds, investments, and things like that. You want to have a will or a trust. Again, whichever one is best for you, you can research it, talk to a financial expert to find out which one is best for you, or maybe you may have both. Another thing that you want to make sure you do, have an authorized user on your bank account. That's one of the things that I'm just starting to realize is, important. So when my aunt passed away, that was one of the things that I could not access, was her bank account once they closed it. Once they found out she passed away, and we could not get access to her bank account because I was not an authorized user. The same thing happened with my father. So one of the things you can do now is add an authorized user. Maybe, I don't know, your spouse, if you're married. So if you're married, you can, everything that I mentioned, and you can talk about these things and have these things in place with your spouse. If you happen to be, or even, you may want to add somebody additional to your spouse, which is fine. But even in addition to your spouse, maybe have somebody else, maybe your children, or maybe I don't know if the authorized user has to be over 18, but I would add your children. I would add anybody else over 18, maybe a sibling, a best friend, or cousin, whoever it is that you trust and that you will want to be able to access your bank account. So that way they can access it. They can, they can remove the funds or do whatever they need to do with that bank account. Because what's going to happen is, once the bank finds out that your family member or your loved one is deceased, you're going to have to go through a probate process, a legal process, to get access to that account, which could be long in itself. So, I'm just trying to give you guys some advice, things that will make it easier, just based on my experiences, because these were things, like I said, that I went through with my aunt. Even though my aunt, things were a lot easier, I still had some things that I had to, like her bank account being shut down, and also, with my father recently, his bank account, and I wasn't an authorized user. So I'm just trying to teach you guys from my mistakes and my experiences, not even just my mistakes, because I wouldn't say any of those were my mistakes because I didn't make them. I didn't not put myself in all, those were just things that I didn't think about. Well, I should say my experiences rather, and then I should have thought about it, because remembering what I went through with my aunt, but that was back in 2012. So I hadn't really thought about any of that until I found myself going through the same thing with my father. So now that I've gone through it again, I realize how important it is to have certain things in place, and even being added to authorized users, not even just bank accounts, but any type of thing. Like for an example, my father, he has a storage. I'm an authorized user on his storage, so I'm able to go in and out of it. as I need to. So just that as well, so if they have a storage or if they have some type of, I don't know, anything, try to see if you can talk to, if you still have living parents, talk to your living parents about what I'm telling you to see if you can be added to as authorized users, or even living loved ones who are older, maybe an older aunt or cousin or whatever, family member, whatever, grandparent. Talk to them about seeing if you can become authorized users on their stuff. And also think about your own bank account. Think about your own, whatever you have, adding authorized users to those, because you don't want some bank to be holding on to your funds that you work hard for. Like, you want your children to be able to get access to it. You want people who need to get access to it, the person that's going to be taking care of your child, your loved ones, or whoever, to be able to access those funds. So just, again, think about that. So everything that I'm telling you to think about for yourself, for when it's that time. Also, talk to your parents. If your parents are still living, talk to your older loved ones. I just had a talk with one of my older aunts, this same conversation, because I want to make sure, because I know this is my mother's sister. My mom has been gone since I was 10 years old, but this is her younger sister. And I know that if something was to happen to my aunt, I'm going to be one of those people that's going to be responsible for what happens after that. So we had a conversation the other night. So I encourage you to do the same. She mentioned, that it scares me to talk about that stuff. And I know, and I told her, I'm sorry. I said, but the reality is that I know that I'm going to be the one. She does have a son, my cousin, but I know that he's going to need my help. And I know that I can't just sit back and just not do anything. And so I let her know that I want to make sure that whenever that time comes, that I'm able to do whatever I need to do to help my cousin, which is her son, and to, give her proper burial and things like that. So I encourage you to do the same. Again, I know this is one of those topics that not a lot of people like to talk about. However, it is necessary. And I'm just going to recap those things again. I mentioned to you to make sure you talk to your loved ones about your wishes, kind of start putting it in their ears about certain things, that you will want. Like I said, my daughter's a teenager and I've started talking to her about certain things. Make sure you have a life insurance policy. Make sure you have a beneficiary or some beneficiaries appointed. You're going to have to do that anyway. Be sure to add authorized users to any accounts you have, like bank accounts or anything like that. And you also want to find out which is best for you, whether it's a will or trust, but have something in writing stating what your wishes are, if something, or when something happens to you. So I hope that this information that I gave you today was helpful. Feel free to share this with someone who you know may benefit from it. If you want to hear more content from me, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. If you have a prayer request, a question, or a video suggestion, feel free to email me. I will leave that information down below. Thank you again for visiting my channel. Be blessed.